live.
Thank you very much. It's the House Judiciary Committee. It is about 4:40 on the 1st of April, 2021. We have 3 bills still to take up on our voting list. And we're going to start with Senate Bill 600. We were on the committee's amendment on 600. So I am now going to, I believe we had a motion and a second for the committee's amendment on Senate Bill 600. And so for that, I'm going to ask, we're going to take a vote on that amendment, seeing no further discussion. So in favor of the committee's amendment on 600, please raise your hands. Delegates Shetty, Williams, Conaway, Cardin, Davis, Watson, Anderson, Moon, Lopez, Fisher, Bartlett, Atterbury, Crutchfield. Opposed to the committee's amendments. Opposed to the committee's amendments. Griffith, Arakan, Grammer, Cham, McComas, Cox, and Malone. The committee's amendments are adopted. We've received amendments from Delegate Grammer. Delegate Grammer, it's the amendment ending in 329. Correct?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Delegate Grammer, tell us what the amendment does.
Absolutely. So we've talked about police reform, but some of the bills about police reform didn't get a vote. And we have jurisdictions that are operating their enforcement illegally. And as we talk about Fourth Amendment issues this session, we talk about policing. I'm wondering why we let some jurisdictions continue with their illegal police surveillance. This amendment requires the warrant for the use of aerial surveillance. Baltimore City's use of aerial surveillance is illegal and it's unconstitutional. And jurisdictions have operated this program around the country in secret. Every time they did so and it was discovered, not only was it shut down completely, it was provided that you cannot operate this program without a warrant. And in response, states have adopted laws requiring a use of a warrant for aerial surveillance. In Baltimore City, that didn't happen. And not only did they not announce they were using this technology, they continued the program. As it usually happens with the militarization of surveillance, massive private interests began to fuse themselves politically. And I would ask my conservative colleagues to pay special attention here. The surveillance company, who was being paid by Baltimore City, formed a PAC and began to shovel political dollars at mayoral candidate through Vig Naraja, who supported perpetuating the program. And these are the kind of candidates these police state corporations are looking to put in power. I'd ask you to consider this policy statement by the gentleman. Speaking with an undercover journalist, when asked about what type of gun control regime he would impose, Vig Naraja replied, "My complete answer off the record is that we should ban guns altogether, period." Elaborating, if you want to go and practice with a gun, you can go to the gun range, pick up your gun at the gun range, fire it there, and then you leave it there and go home. Vig Naraja then goes on to explain a scheme under which he might allow individuals to keep a firearm in the home, subject to, quote, extensive licensing scheme, taxation, mandatory insurance, and fingerprint trigger locks. By allowing the proliferation of this technology, we acquiesced to authoritarianism. And is this what we want? I'm closing here, and I'll ask you to consider what the future use of this tool is now that Baltimore City can use it whenever they like. If Baltimore City is going to stop prosecution of most drug-related crimes, and we know that a significant portion, if not most of the violent crimes are related to illegal drug distribution, what will Baltimore and potentially more future jurisdictions use this tool for? Maybe the next step will be tax assessments, or maybe they'll use it to shut down restaurants over COVID violations. Joe Biden recently asked the Supreme Court to rule that police didn't need a warrant to enter your home and seize your guns. Is that the next big trend with surveillance? Or maybe the big trend will be to round up conservatives who are increasingly being labeled as domestic terrorists. The ignorance of Baltimore's illegal police surveillance should be chilling to every American. It's unconstitutional. Continuing to ignore this tool flies directly in the face of the reforms that we're supposedly looking to achieve. It is hypocritical to frantically pass laws on police reform and Fourth Amendment issues and let the state's most untrustworthy actor continue to violate the Fourth Amendment and continue their trend of unaccountable police surveillance. We should tell Baltimore City that if they want to use mass surveillance tools, they can get a warrant. So I would ask for your support. I would ask for a second, and I move the amendment.
Second it.
There's a motion and a second on the amendment. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Chair would ask the committee to resist the amendment as that believe that the program was canceled in Baltimore largely because it didn't work. Delegate Aricam.
I wanted to see if Delegate Grammer can answer a couple questions about the program. I've read a little bit about it. How long has it been in use, and what are they doing with the like what kind of information are they getting? Is this that weird thing where it turns into a cell tower and they like pick up, or is that something totally different than this?
So what the program is they put ultra high definition cameras on a plane that essentially capture images of the entire city, and that allows them to form a mosaic. So which if they have evidence, it's typically location based, and they can trace a person back to a location. Now, what they will say to you is it only records a pixel. That statement is idiotic. Any person who works in IT knows that we do not record on pixels. We record, and it is that information is delivered to you through some kind of monitor, which has thousands of pixels. So everything about this program has been a complete cover-up. I would actually challenge the chair on one degree and accept his argument in the other. It has been completely ineffective. I haven't heard of any cases where it's actually led to a conviction. But here's the important point. In Los Angeles and Ohio and places around the country where they found it, every case it was being operated without knowledge to the public. They said, we didn't know about this. And having found it, we're shutting it down. You need to get a warrant to use this. That is not what Baltimore City did. Baltimore City did not say, we're going to adopt regulations. They didn't say you need to get a warrant. They actually continued to use it, and they put it on the shelf. When they initially used this program, they whipped it out of nowhere, and we found it months after the fact. So they can use this program anytime they like from here on out, unless we do what other states have done and put a law in place that says to use this technology, you need a warrant.
Okay, so they're picking up images of people in high definition, and it's just everybody that's on the street. They don't have, do they target people, or is it just?
It's a picture of the entire city. It's a continual stream of pictures of the entire area, which they could zoom in on.
Wow. And how do they do it often? I mean, how do we know when they're using it or when they're not using it?
Well, they've discontinued the program for now, allegedly, but they were using it for several years.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Delegate Grammer, so right now it's discontinued, but is there anything legislatively preventing them to reinstitute it at any time?
No. And let's be clear here. You know, we've had a lot of discussions about, for example, the use of genetic profiles in these companies. It's not that we want to ban the use. It's that we want to have a framework for legal use. And what's the framework for legal use? You get a warrant. You know, if we adopt this language, we actually put the framework in place for saying, here's how you use this. If you want to use this tool, you can use it, get a warrant. That's what we're doing. That's what we did with the genetic profiling bill.
So with the program, can they prosecute or arrest, I should say, any crime seen in the picture, whether it's a lead or not? Or if they see any illegal activity in that picture whatsoever, can they deal with it?
So what we heard back from law enforcement in relation to this tool is that they predominantly wanted to use it for violent crimes, but there's nothing limiting it or regulating it to that.
So I know right now the current state's attorney in Baltimore City is not prosecuting similar crimes, but all it takes is, and this, my question is, if there was one election with state's attorney in Baltimore City who was elected, who would want to be much more of a,
A tyrant.
potentially, that type of prosecutor. They could
Right.
cash in. I mean, they could really use this as a big tool to go after, almost broken windows policing, correct?
They could use it for broken windows policing. They could use it to trace people who went to buy guns. The ACLU supported this bill for just that reason, and they cited a slew of different things. You could literally use this for whatever you want. There is no framework for Baltimore City or anybody else to use this. They can do whatever they want.
Delegate Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Delegate Grammer, for bringing this amendment. My heart is with you on this one, and I found this spy blimp thing to be, like the movie Minority Report, and super sketchy.
The spy blimps were different, Delegate Moon. Similar but different.
Anyway, I've always had an aversion to all of this experimental police surveillance being deployed without much discussion. But I have to say, if your goal is to attach a entire bill to this one, when the other bill is sort of still pending, even if you want to attach it to a whole nother bill, I would say, can we work together to find another Senate bill coming over, perhaps a lower stakes bill at lower stakes timing, to have that conversation? Because as you know, there's been a lot of hot temperatures between the chambers about these particular bills, and I hate to disturb balances sometimes, and this is one of those moments. So my heart is with you, but I'm going to be a no, but we'll pledge to work with you to solve this problem.
And I believe you're sincere in that. And, I think I know your heart on this issue. But here's the frustration. Being a Republican trying to talk about Fourth Amendment and privacy issues, like how many years do you have to ask what we can do? How do you make the bill work? I mean, imagine talking to the wall for years and years for a giant issue that's being publicly discussed. Like everybody knows about this issue. So that's my frustration. Last year I put forward an amendment and I was told there was another bill and I should pull the amendment back, knowing that there was another bill, and I did so, and that bill never went anywhere. And you ask and ask and ask, and that's my frustration here. So I sincerely believe in the amendment. I sincerely believe in the bill. I think it can work here. I get where we are and the frustrations between both houses, but for God's sake, this has been years. This is completely illegal. And I'm trying to stand up and do something about it.
Delegate Cox, then Delegate Juanita Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, to dovetail on what Delegate Moon was saying, this is a significant concern, but I would look at it from a different angle and remember our Hopkins vote that we all were participating in. And if you remember, that was a significant piece of legislation. It was a massive work. And in the midst of all of that, we had people coming in demanding, and we did ban aerial surveillance through that bill, but not for the whole city. So I think we can do it again. I think this is a bipartisan issue. But Delegate Grammer, my specific question was, we heard some testimony the other day about this fusion database for these other types of camera spying on public. And how does that fit in? Are you aware that they can, are they able to use this technology to feed our metadata into this database? And
Absolutely. And that's why I asked Delegate Sidnor about that. And my question on that bill was, where do they get the data? And his answer was, I don't know. And I'm glad you asked about fusion centers, because you know where this data is going to go? It's going to go into the damn fusion center, which is the most untrustworthy, unexplored, unaccountable part of government from top to bottom. I mean, there's a ton of information on all of us in a fusion center. And every time we put on these new mechanisms like facial recognition or aerial surveillance, you bet your bottom line it's going in a fusion center. And it's the most unaccountable police state part of government there is. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And it's a shame. I mean, the fusion center issue goes back to the Patriot Act debate, which was, what, 15, 20 years ago at this point.
Further questions? Seeing none. Take a vote on the amendment. All right. Let's see. Delegate Griffith's camera went out. I'm sorry, Delegate Anderson has his hand up. Go ahead, Delegate Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to go over some of the statements that Delegate Grammer made that seems like, with the force that he made them, they seem like facts. Delegate Grammer, you said that this program has been in existence in Baltimore for several years. Where do you get that information from?
The use of the program in Baltimore City.
Yeah, the surveillance program, the aerial surveillance.
Yes.
It's been going on in Baltimore for several years. Where do you get that information from?
The actual use of the program in Baltimore City.
Yeah.
Yes, that's where I get it from. They have been using it for several years.
Okay, well, they only used it for 180 days. It was up in 2016 for a couple of months when people decided that we should discuss it. And then they started a pilot program last year that ended on October 31st. That lasted another 120 days. So the total maybe is 180 days, maybe a little bit more in terms of the length that's been used. Another fact that you said very emphatically that this is unconstitutional and illegal. Where do you get that information from? Who has determined that this was unconstitutional? Who has said it's illegal?
So I'll speak to both your questions. The first question, answer your first question. When has it been used? This discussion between the aerial surveillance company and Baltimore City Police was done so in secret. It was first used after the riots after Freddie Gray, and they said, we're going to start using this program. We've been talking about it for months. Now we're going to use it. We're not going to announce it to the public. And it was used, for, like you said, several months in a pilot afterwards. But the issue itself has been ongoing for quite some time now. You quoted 2016. It was either in discussion or used or implemented for several years after that. I wish I had the case law in front of me, but when I had the testimony for the bill earlier this year, we discussed the relevant cases, or at least the closest cases to this. Now, I will say this specific type of aerial surveillance has not been tested in Supreme Court, but there are several cases which are similar, which can help us understand why this is illegal. It is not illegal to take a photograph of what is considered a public space. That is not illegal. What has been found illegal in the Supreme Court is any use of recording of pictures that forms a mosaic that shows a course of action of a person. And I can get you that case law. I'm sure I have it.
Okay,
here.
but the bottom line, though, is that this program, which is currently being considered in the federal court, District 4 for state of Maryland, United States Federal District Court, no judge in that court has found it unconstitutional or illegal. In fact, the last judge that acted on it allowed the program to go forward pending further discussion. And finally, you indicated that you knew of no cases that were used with this program, that there were no pending cases or no investigations that benefited from this surveillance, when in fact, you can look it up in the Sun paper that there's 40 pending cases and more than 200 ongoing investigations using this. My point is that you make these statements that make us all sound like they're facts, when in fact they're not. And I really wish you wouldn't do it unless you have something to support it.
Well, on the last point you made there, I've inquired time and time again for specific cases that this has generated a lead on to help me understand that, and I cannot procure any. I cannot procure any.
We'll just go online.
Vice Chair, please go back on mute. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm trying, I really don't want to be critical, but you're very persuasive and your voice is compelling. And when you say some of these things, they almost sound true. And I felt at least the need to question you on them and to see if there was any additional factual information that you had to back it up before I voted on it. And I just think that your arguments fall short for lack of, actual current factual information.
I appreciate the criticism.
Delegate McComas.
Caught eating an animal cracker. I've been listening to everything, and I'm just wondering if, I know it is a concern for several of our members in the committee about an amendment to just make it a task force to study the issue, and that way everybody gets something out of it, and we can now actually find out exactly what the heck's going on. I don't have a prepared amendment, but I think that might solve the problem.
Delegate McComas, I think this issue is much more clear than the stingray issue or the genetic profiling issue or any of the other Fourth Amendment issues we discuss. We could pick through the cases which may or may not, this technology may or may not have been utilized for. I think when it comes down to it, you either think that state governments should get a warrant for technologies that use mass surveillance, or that they don't need a warrant for that. And this is a technology that I sincerely believe you should absolutely have to have a warrant for.
Well, I guess where I'm coming from, though, is the thought that, okay, Delegate Anderson kind of doesn't think that this is a problem. You think it's a real serious problem. The compromise is, well, all right, let's get a work group working on it. And
I think he has valid. I think he has valid points. If you want to question the timing, we can question the timing, but the timing has been terrible. It was implemented without public knowledge. Public didn't like it to a large degree. If we could debate when it has been used, and we could certainly pick through that. But in the end, what happens with all of these technologies is we adopt a regulatory framework for use. And that's what I'm trying to get at here. And I just reject the notion that we discuss this issue year after year after year, and nothing ever happens.
Delegate Conaway, and then we're moving the question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to say that I agree with everything that Delegate Grammer said, but I don't think that this should be added to this bill. So I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further discussion, we'll take a roll call on the amendment. The Vice Chair?
No.
Delegate Anderson?
No.
Delegate Arakan?
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett?
No.
Delegate Cardin?
No.
Delegate Conaway?
No.
Delegate Cox?
Yes, and to explain my vote, just to remind the committee that the Hopkins bill that we voted out, that actually was even more narrow. I mean, that was to target a particular crime in action, and we banned the use of drones to follow and pursue an active criminal suspect. This is broad and Orwellian. I mean, this is something that we can all agree on as a bipartisan decision that should not occur. It's directly in conflict with the Supreme Court of the United States rule, as Delegate Grammer pointed out. And regardless of a Fourth Circuit's judge failure to follow that rule necessarily, we can follow the rule and make it that case in Maryland today. And I would, I'll be putting that green vote for that purpose.
Delegate Crutchfield,
No.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
No.
Delegate Wanika Fisher.
No, and just to explain my vote very briefly, Mr. Chair, happy to work on this issue further with Delegate Moon and Delegate Grammer.
Delegate Grammer,
To protect the Fourth Amendment and stand against mass surveillance, yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Yes, may I
Sorry?
explain my vote very briefly. I know the body's worked very hard on these bills, and it hasn't been easy. It's been very, very hard. And this is another difficult question. And we believe, I think we can do this right here and right now. And
thank you. Rachel Jones, not present. Delegate Lopez,
No.
Delegate Malone,
Yes.
Delegate McComas,
Even though nobody likes my task force, I vote yes, because I do think it's an important issue. And I think we're quickly running down the path that George Orwell predicted, and it's kind of scary.
Delegate Moon,
Nope, not on this bill. Thank you.
Delegate Shetty,
No.
Delegate Cham,
Yes.
Delegate Ron Watson,
No.
Delegate Williams.
No, I think it should be a brand new bill. Thanks.
Amendment fails. The chair does not see further amendments to Senate Bill 600, but is double checking. For the record, Delegate Erican had an amendment that was turned in some time ago. And then actually in the committee's amendments, it lengthened the time that the independent investigation, investigation unit had to turn their results over to the state's attorney from 10 to 14 days. My understanding is that Delegate Erican is not offering that amendment. In the committee's amendments, it actually, the length of time reflects, I think, a Senate change that actually moved it to 15 days. So Delegate Erican's amendment was kind of subsumed by that. All right. We're on the bill as amended. Is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Move favorable.
So motion for favorable and a second on the bill as amended. Is there further discussion on the bill as amended? Delegate Erican.
So I used my hold about an hour and a half ago, and I immediately, while we were talking, put in my request for 2 other amendments. Those have not come back yet. I don't know what the rush is. I would much prefer to offer my amendments to our committee so we could discuss them with people that understand this policy and subject matter. I'm also really uncomfortable with the fact that every time I call the amendments office to amend a bill that's already been heavily amended and is interlineated, they're literally unable to do that. They cannot amend interlineated bills. So the minority party is already at a massive disadvantage. And we try to order amendments and we literally cannot do that, not until it's on the floor. So we're kind of getting cut out then of some of the important work that's supposed to be done, at the committee and subcommittee level. So I'm disappointed if we move from this bill I'm just checking my thing. I still haven't gotten the other 2 back without the minority party being able to even really offer amendments because of the short time frame. So, that's what I have to say on the matter, that I'm disappointed. And I think that our voices are getting a little bit squashed in this amendment process.
Delegate Bartlett.
I just wanted to say that whatever method Delegate Cox has, it works on the amendments because he can get an amendment through so fast. There was a bill I had on, and the amendment came before we even finished the hearing. So I just wanted to tell you, Delegate Cox does a great job with his amendments. And so maybe you might want to figure out whatever his secret is.
Delegate McComas, then Delegate Cox.
Obviously, I didn't use the Cox Amendment technique. I guess I was going to have to teach us a class. I put in 3 amendments on 3 different bills, and they were really, really simple. And I've yet to get them back. And I mean, I did them before I think our initial session earlier today. So that's all I'm saying. So I guess I'll just save it for the floor.
Delegate Cox.
Well, real brief, I'm going to speak on the bill too, but real briefly, it is a problem with the amendment office being heavily backlogged at this time. It's not their fault, I don't think. And I have had significant difficulties. Some of my amendments have come back, but honestly, with the interlineated versions, I mean, it's a crazy world right now, and a lot of the citations need to be fixed. And it's just, and I have had the same experience. You call up the amendment office, and they're at a loss to be able to properly and quickly figure out how to amend an amended interlineated copy. So it is a matter of procedure that rushing something through. And I take note for the record that the interlineated copy of this bill is published at today at 11:10 a.m. And here we are, less than 24 hours. That's I think it would be better procedure to give us at least 24 hours. I know that the 48-hour rule has been the standard, and at the the late hour here in the last couple weeks of session, it's been needing, I guess, a desire to not follow that rule. But I still think that 24 hours is more than necessary when you're considering substantial, massive change to Maryland policy. So, but thank you.
I'll let the committee know Delegate Arakan's amendment, one of her amendments ending in 825 has arrived at the committee, and we will accept it for consideration, and we'll provide it shortly to the committee. Delegate Griffith, go ahead. Very quickly, Delegate Arakan, it has been forwarded to everyone in the committee by email. Delegate Arakan, it's 443825, but I will hear Delegate Griffith lowered his hand.
I was just going to support Delegate Cox and us waiting for the amendment. The amendment's arrived. I'm satisfied.
I understand. So Delegate Arakan, the amendment that I have why don't you tell us what the amendment would do?
So I wanted to drop one amendment, and this is the closest they could get to it because they can't amend an interlineated copy of a bill. So this one simply gets rid of the, it basically turns it into a task force. Is basically, it leaves the task force bit in, and it gets rid of the rest. I mean, it's not really what I wanted to do because the way the bill process works, I couldn't make changes to what you plan to make changes to. They couldn't do that. So but this amendment basically will turn leave only the task force.
That is my reading of the amendment as well. I will say that even if it is not technically perfect to answer a concern from Delegate Arakan and others, I believe it's here satisfactorily to be at least dealt with conceptually, and it's in writing. So to that end, we are on. Is there a motion on the amendment?
Move favorable.
It's a motion for the amendment. Is there a second?
Lauren.
Second.
And a second. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Delegate Cox, it might still have been up from before.
Yeah, I'm on the bill.
Okay, so we'll go to Delegate Bartlett.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to double check the amendment that we're working on, because we have two amendments from Delegate Arakan. So I just want.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the one that just changes a 10 to a 14 has already actually been largely addressed in the committee amendments. And that ended in 728. This is an amendment that we just received that ends in 825.
Okay.
Okay, and you should have received it by email.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
As Delegate Arakan says, it would seek to turn this into a task force on an independent investigation unit related to deaths caused by law enforcement officers. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Hearing and seeing none. The Vice Chair,
No.
Delegate Anderson,
No.
Delegate Arakan,
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett,
No.
Delegate Cardin,
No.
Delegate Conaway,
No.
Delegate Cox,
Yes.
Delegate Crutchfield,
No.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
No.
Delegate Wanika Fisher,
No.
Delegate Robin Grammer,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Yes.
Delegate Rachel Jones,
No.
Delegate Lopez,
No.
Delegate Malone. Malone. Delegate Malone, you're muted.
I know. Yes.
Delegate McComas,
Yes.
Delegate Moon.
No.
Delegate Shetty,
No.
Delegate Cham,
Yes.
Delegate Ron Watson. Delegate Williams,
No.
7 to 14, the amendment fails. Now, on the bill, Delegate Cox wished to speak on the bill. Delegate Cox. And let me, wait a minute, stop. We're on the bill as amended. Could I have a motion on the bill as amended?
Move
So
favorable.
moved.
Motion for a
Second.
favorable is a second. Fine. Now, Delegate Cox on the bill.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And, I think the issue that I was concerned most about is the fact that this is a broad and sweeping change, and the nature of the interlineated being published today, it's been difficult to try to get a handle on everything that the Senate has sent over to us, and in context, knowing that we have obviously HB 670 to try to consider in the same context. And I really wanted to speak to the fact that, doing such a broad and sweeping change without a lot of study is my greatest concern. And then additionally, when you look at, excuse me, banning certain use of vehicles, I mean, I think we can all agree that certain aspects of militarization is something that's not really the intent of law enforcement, and can be really, it's not even happening so much, but to go into certain minutia and to prevent things that actually might be useful for a SWAT team is a concern, particularly when these individuals, these law enforcement officers, are risking their lives, and they may need an armored vehicle just to make sure they don't die. I mean, these guys, as you heard earlier in testimony, some of them are only making $30,000 to $50,000 a year, and that's their full-time job. We're putting these people in harm's way without a lot of careful consideration and limitation of the nature of the bill. So that would be my greatest concern, and then couple that with the procedure. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Delegate Arakan, and then Delegate Griffith, please. Delegate Arakan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've got a lot of concerns about this bill. I echo what Delegate Cox mentioned. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. We would force our law enforcement agencies to pay more for products. It's totally illogical. And I've got serious concerns about how this bill on page 3 under the title 3523, it has the independent investigative unit going into the office of the Attorney General. That is a hyper partisan position. I think it's totally inappropriate to have a hyper partisan position overseeing the investigation of these truly serious cases and crimes. You know, I mean, maybe everyone here feels comfortable because of who's there now, but you know, we could win later. You never know. And then you might not like it so much if the hyper partisan person is the one that's deciding how to run the investigations. So I really don't like that part of it. And I don't think that it's appropriate. And I don't think it's going to serve the best interests of the community at large to have that in place. Those are my sort of biggest concerns with it. I think it's disappointing that we didn't get more time to sort of really talk about this stuff, and then these bills weren't sent through subcommittee. I think that would have given us an opportunity to really dig into the actual language of it instead of just seeing this copy today at, you know, almost noon. So I'm very much opposed to the way this final copies drafted.
Thank you very much, Delegate Griffith and Delegate McComas.
I have a couple questions and I'll follow as a comment if that's acceptable.
That's fine.
First question is it typical that a bill that's this heavily amended does not go through a subcommittee? Because I mean, it's smashing several bills into one, changing some language, dragging some language. It's very robust. And is that typical? Is that a typical process?
There have been examples in the legislature in the past where this happens. There's been examples on every side of issues where that's happened, where comprehensive bills come together between Senate and House bills. And I can think of back in 2018, there was there's one bigger point. We did not have subcommittees under the previous chair that actually did anything. It was not uncommon at all to have that happen then. But genuinely at this point in session, where time is shorter, it is not unusual for these kind of bills to come together like this.
Okay, my next question is on, the interlineated version. It's page 3, section D, where it talks about law enforcement agency may not receive the following equipment from surplus program. It says weaponized. Does that include armored?
Delegate Moon, this goes back to your amendment. I'm going to let you answer the questions regarding this.
Now, unfortunately for us, the Senate appears to have prevailed on this count, and the Senate had deleted, it was armored and weaponized was sort of the debate, and they decided to take the armored vehicles out of the prohibition.
So the Senate was successfully able to move what we were trying to push in terms of allowing law enforcement to buy armored vehicles.
Correct. I mean, if you can look at what's going on, basically, our independent investigation, or the independent investigation language got grafted onto their version of the military equipment. Yeah, so someone over there overpowered us.
That's a great win for law enforcement. I'm super excited about that piece. And then finally, to follow up on Delegate Erickson's point, with the internal investigation unit within the Office of the Attorney General, what deeply concerns about me is that that's a political position. And I guess, you know, everything we do in public service has a layer of political flavor to it, because even people that are in positions ultimately answer to a politician at some point, unfortunately. And if there's a matter, and this can go in any direction, where it's something suddenly becomes politically motivated for whatever reason, with great pressure to maintain that office, there's a temptation there. And it's not, pointing at any individual, and it's not a criticism, but it's certainly human nature that I might be glitching. It's certainly human nature that one may feel pressure to move on an issue purely for the politics, even if they don't have an intent to prosecute it, just to investigate based on political pressure and put someone's reputation, tarnish someone's reputation for political pressure is unfortunate. And the fact that we can't place that under the state's attorney from the attorney general, I think it's certainly alarming, and we all should be alarmed by the precedent it sets.
It doesn't have to do with the prosecution. It has to do with the investigation. And gets handed to the determination that it gets handed to the state's attorney, but the investigation is done independently when it comes to the death of a person. State's attorneys also elected, state prosecutor appointed by the attorney general. Okay. Delegate McComas. You're muted.
A little bit of history as far as the political of the office of the Attorney General. HB 1 was the first bill that was put in 2017 when Trump was elected, and it was to give the Attorney General the power to sue the federal government without permission from the governor's office. And what was fascinating about it was, it passed like a greased pig. But the interesting thing about it is that Chairman Frost said, or State's Attorney General Frost said, there won't be any expense, no expense at all. Well, and then in about a HB 900 or something, he needed $1 million more for his budget because had to hire some lawyers. And of course, then he did sue the Trump administration under the emollient clause. And I don't know what the final resolution was, but it is a very, very political office. And what I don't understand is, thinking of the logistics, the Attorney General has an office in Baltimore City. I don't believe he has branch offices throughout the state. My thought would be that it would be better to have this independent investigative unit within the state police, because we know they have different barracks and they have associations with the different counties, as far as they have them in Northeast, they have one in Bel Air, they have one in Annapolis, different barracks. So that's a kind of just a logistical reason. Plus, if it's an independent investigative unit, they're going to, where are they going to be drawing the folks? And we really need the best of the best. And I believe right now, if there is a murder in the public safety correctional system, they are the ones that initially go in and do the investigation. So I think that we really, in other words, I think it would be better that it is put in with an investigative unit, a police agency, and the state police, they cover the whole area, and they probably, they're kind of, they're very well respected. I think that this bill is somewhat flawed, putting them in with the Attorney General, and it makes more sense to put them in with the state police. And they have much more contact with the training, and so they'll know the latest of the latest. And a lot of them go to the FBI school, which is kind of the Rolls Royce of law enforcement institutions, training institutions. So I just think that the bill is kind of, we're basically taking one thing that looks like a castle and changing it in to look like it's a hacienda or something. And those are two different not agricultural, but architectural, different buildings, different kind of the whole concept. And I think it's tough following this, to be honest with you, because it comes in as a let's say, an elephant and comes out as a donkey or comes out as something entirely different. And it really makes it hard for us to understand. And I realize that it's been negotiated at the top levels, but I'm just not sure that the folks that have to live under this stuff are really going to be happy with the way we're making this sausage. I think it could be kind of toxic sausage.
Delegate Juanita Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move to the previous question.
All right, there's a motion for the previous question. Delegate Griffith had spoken before. Delegate Cham had not yet made a comment. I'm going to take Delegate Cham's comment, and then I'm going to hear the motion on the previous question. So Delegate Cham, please, for your.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. If I could, if the committee could oblige me to go back to the discussion regarding the surplus program, and I certainly agree with Delegate McComas. Trying to follow all of it. It's very disjointed and disconnected, but just trying to understand the surplus program. Is this where just extra more equipment is housed, or because I see here it talks about the vehicle that they may not, law enforcement agencies may not receive vehicles. What type of vehicles are these? Are these military style vehicles or armored cars?
Delegate Moon, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah.
I apologize, Moon, if you already talked about it. I may have missed it.
No. So this portion of the policy is about the federal government giving away surplus military equipment to police departments, which has been a program in existence for some time now. And Maryland departments have been participating, everyone from College Park to, the county and city departments. And after some of the use of the military equipment in the Ferguson protests and some of this, the Obama administration put a halt to certain types of that equipment being distributed. And when Trump came into office, he reversed it and reopened the program. And so there's been some conversation about putting some of those guardrails back into place. This is actually a very slim version, I think, of this ban compared to even what the Obama administration had did, I think. So I think you shouldn't feel too bad about it. Because I think the armored vehicles were among the debated items, but that came out in the Senate. So we're going to have to fight on that another day anyway.
Thank you.
All right, so we are now on the bill as amended. Motion to move the previous question. All in favor of moving the previous question shall say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Nay.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Delegate Arakan. Oh, you raised your hand just to vote nay. Okay, got it. All right, got it. We're moving to the previous question. The question is on the bill as amended. We're going to take a roll call. The vice chair.
Did you say chair or vice chair?
The vice chair.
A little bit. On the bill as amended, yes. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Anderson.
Yes.
Delegate Arakan.
No.
Delegate Bartlett.
Yes.
Delegate Cardin.
Yes.
Delegate Conaway.
Yes.
Delegate Cox.
No.
Delegate Crutchfield.
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis.
Yes.
Delegate Juanita Fisher.
Yes.
Delegate Grammer.
Can I explain my vote, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
So I actually like Delegate Moon's part of the bill about the equipment surplus. I think that's fine. I think, and we saw a lot of resistance to this special enforcement group. I think in creating these, it does tend to politicize things. I get emails all day from elected officials about how they're their specific group is doing great things and are using state resources to promote themselves perpetually. I think this is going to contribute to that. The state's attorneys didn't like this, if I recall. And I think when we have these kind of bills and we ignore such egregious issues that we have before us, I think it's unfortunate. I think everybody has ideas about police reform and personal privacy issues, and we should pay audience to those when possible. And that's why I'll be voting no.
Delegate Griffith?
To explain on my vote.
Sure.
So I'm grateful that we did amend the piece where police can buy surplus equipment for their protection. I think that's important. My concern is the chilling effect on law enforcement, that it does have the Attorney General conducting investigations, which may certainly opens up the opportunity for those investigations to be political in nature, which is certainly very scary. Also, I don't know, I'm not sure if we've taken an adequate look at what this bill, if passed, the effect it would have on the exodus from law enforcement. So would people leave law enforcement because they're concerned about some of these things? Would they not respond because they're concerned about consequences of second guessing themselves in these things? Will people leave? Will people retire early? And then who would enter law enforcement based on these things? Does this back us into defunding the police because people wouldn't want to be law enforcement anymore because they're afraid that they may be a target of a political investigation? That's not an accusation against any individual, but certainly, people are human. And if with certain public pressure, that it is a possibility that it could happen in this bill. And for all those reasons, I'll be voting no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Delegate Rachel Jones?
Yes.
Delegate Lopez?
Yes.
Delegate Malone?
No.
Delegate McComas? Delegate McComas, you're on mute.
No, and the reason why is because basically the police perform a very important function, and we have a serious problem in this state. It seems like every time you pick up the paper, somebody's been murdered, and innocent people are being harmed. Innocent Black people, innocent grandmas, innocent babies, innocent mamas, innocent young kids that are just, trying to do well, and there's stories of them getting shot. And I think that drugs are a big problem, and I think that we really need to be. I just don't think that the grinding the sausage, the way we're going about this, is the way to do it, and it really concerns me because we're playing with people's lives, and we've got to make sure that the major players, the people that are going to keep peace and be concerned with a just society, are kind of cut out here. And we're deciding what's right. And I'm not sure that we know what we don't know. And that really concerns me. And I'm afraid always bills, they have good parts and they have bad parts. And I think there's a lot of collateral damage here that we just don't know yet. And it worries me. So I'll be voting no.
Delegate Moon?
Yes, Mr. Chair. All the bill does is has police killing people investigated by an independent group and stops police from acquiring bombs. So yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Shetty?
Yes.
Delegate Cham?
No, and may I explain just briefly?
Sure.
There were a lot of edits made, a lot of revisions made, which is good. I think it's moving in the right direction, but I still think there's some disjointed to the bill. There's some disconnections that we just haven't quite summed up in a manner where I can give a yes vote. So I'm a no.
Thank you. Delegate Ron Watson?
Yes.
Delegate Williams?
Yes.
It's 14-7. Okay, we're going to go now to Senate Bill 178. When we last left our story, we were on the bill we were on the committee's amendments. And then a hold was requested at that point.
I'm favorable on the committee's amendments.
So we have a motion for a favorable. It was already seconded. We're going to take a vote on the committee's amendments. All in favor of the committee's amendments, please raise your hands. Delegates Shetty, Williams, Conaway, Moon, Deborah Davis, Cardin, Anderson, Watson, Lopez, Crutchfield, Atterbury, Bartlett, Fisher, and Jones for 14. In opposition to the committee's amendments, delegates Arakan, Grammer, Sham, McComas, Cox, Malone, for 7. So the amendments are adopted.
Move favorable as amended.
There are further amendments. Delegate Cox, you have 4 amendments that are here and have been submitted. Delegate Cox, which one would you like to start with?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The last 3, 220, which
293220.
yes.
Tell the committee what it could possibly be. I've informed members of the minority party who've requested amendments that even if they are not perfectly aligned with the interlineated version, I'm going to let you give some latitude, and please tell us what in concept the amendment does.
Thank you. And so in concept and the specific nature of the amendment actually is very positive and bipartisan, I believe. And I have additional amendments about privacy concerns, but this one is specific to ensuring that the person of interest includes a party to a proceeding. So right here, we see an article, I think it was the Baltimore Sun, said that Anton Black's family, it took them more than 4 months to get any documents involved in their brother's case. And it wasn't until Governor Hogan got involved that they began to receive some of them. Now, what's interesting is there seems to be this potential in the bill to allow third parties access, but it doesn't specifically expressly help the parties in interest. And if we're going to have transparency, I think we need to be careful not to damage the reputation of law enforcement. And I think it's a fair balance to ensure that if you have a party in interest, a party to a proceeding, that they should be listed in the statute as the person in interest, as a person in interest, because the statute as it's written, describing persons in interest, does not go that far. It actually limits it very narrowly to only if the person is a subject of a particular record, and the public records are spelled out. So that's, I think, why there was such a problem for the Anton Black family. So this would clarify that. I think it's bipartisan. I'd move the amendment.
All right, there's a motion on this amendment.
Second.
Is there a second? All right. On the amendment, is there further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote.
Delegate Malone had his hand up, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry? Delegate Malone, I didn't see you with the electronic hand up.
Yes. Can someone just walk me through where the definition is for person of interest?
It's in general provisions, Article 4-101 definitions, section G, subsection G.
Further questions, comments on the amendment?
And it specifically says, Delegate Malone, it says that.
Yeah, because it's not in the interlineated copy, correct?
Correct, and that's why I had to pull the statute. It's
okay. That's okay. That's why. Okay, so.
Further comments? Delegate Arakan.
So what exactly, I'm having trouble pulling the amendment. Yeah, did Dylan email that to us? Can we see it one more time?
Dylan, can we put that on the screen again, ending in 220? Thank you.
Okay. So you would be changing, I'm trying to figure out where this is in the actual bill. My computer's going all haywire on me. It's being weird. Okay, so do you know where in the interlineated copy that these changes might be? Are they still close to page 3? No, there's nothing on page 3 now.
I forgot I was on mute, sorry. If you go past the no-knock warrant section and you go onto the general provisions article section, which is, it says page 3 and interlineated, but it's actually like, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8.
Okay, okay.
There's a lot of stricken information, but then you keep going to page 4 and it
No-knocks.
goes 4-101. And I think that's where the bill drafters said that it would ultimately go, but obviously this is not the bill. This is just simply a proffered interlineary.
So you said 4-what?
101 of the general provisions, I think, is where it will go.
Oh, I see, over here. Okay. And so what you're adding in is
Simply saying that Anton Black's family, who was a complainant, a party, that they are a person in interest. That's all it says. And this bill, you know, it's called Anton's Black bill, but it doesn't even guarantee they can have access.
yeah, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, that was what the whole purpose of was, you know, to stop what happened to his family from happening to any family ever again. So yeah, this seems like a common sense amendment to me. Thank you.
Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, a very rare appearance by my reading glasses. Delegate Cox, so this amendment would simply give Anton to the records.
I think you're breaking up on me.
You have to try again,
I'm
Delegate.
breaking up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So with this amendment would simply give Anton Black's family access to the records in that matter?
Yes, as a complainant, they would be a party to the proceeding. So they would be guaranteed access to all relevant documents just for the proceeding purposes. But that's the intent, and that's the actual language, because as it's written presently, only a person in interest has access to that. And Anton Black's family was denied substantive access to most of the record until Governor Hogan got involved.
So wouldn't this bill really help fulfill the intent? Would this amendment really help fulfill the intent of the bill?
Yes, that's exactly my point. My purpose is that, and and that's why I believe it truly is a bipartisan amendment.
I agree. I think this amendment does a great job helping deliver justice, and I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Delegate McComas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to ask if you look on the reprint that we have, and it's 4-311, and you go down to, there's a parentheses A and then parentheses B. Is that where you're going to put that the person that's involved in the litigation, a party to a proceeding against law enforcement, is going to go? Because we don't have the, you know, the line numbers or anything. So I'm just trying to figure out where you're going to put it.
Well, so my understanding, talking to the bill drafting office, they will put it in and will renumber it as needed, because they said that the present status of these committee amendments change all of the lettering, and they won't know until the committee passes it what the actual lettering is. So it's somewhere in that area is the best I can tell you. But if that's
okay.
the subject matter area, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Delegate Moon.
Move previous question.
The motion for the previous question. All in favor of moving the previous question, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? There are votes opposed in the opinion of the chair. The ayes have it. We're on the question on the adoption of the amendment ending in 220 from Delegate Cox. All right, we'll do it by physical hands. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Arakan, Sham, Grammer, Thomas, Cox, Malone, and Griffith. All those opposed, please raise your hands. Delegates Shetty, Williams, Conaway, Moon, Davis, Carden, Anderson, Lopez, Crutchfield, Atterbury, Bartlett, Fisher, Jones. The amendment is not agreed to. The next amendment. Delegate Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it would, I'll pull up 625.
Ending in 625.
333-625.
Which would classify unsustained or unsubstantiated complaints or technical infractions as personnel records and thus not acceptable, not accessible under the PIA.
That's correct. And Mr. Chair and members of the committee, the point of this is to ensure that the due process of officers are protected. When you look at the current status of the bills, as I'm hearing, there'll be a 3-year expungement opportunity. So this protects that process to ensure that unsustained and unsubstantiated complaints that will be expunged will not be disseminated before that time. Now, this does not prevent those who are investigating a potential crime from accessing unsustained or unsubstantiated complaints from the past as part of their investigation. This is strictly for the focus of the MPIA for those who are general persons and interests. And as such, I would move the amendment.
Motion on the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Sorry.
Delegate Griffith.
I apologize. I'm trying to keep up here. So question on the amendment. Why wouldn't we want to protect anyone's unsubstantiated complaints against them? I mean, I'm certainly, supporting expungement up and down the board for unsubstantiated, for charges cleared of individuals. I think that's a right thing. I don't think people should be held accountable for things they didn't do and were wrongly accused of. And we're working very hard in that direction. I support that. Why wouldn't we do the same for law enforcement that we're trying to do for average citizens?
Well, I agree. And thank you, Delegate. I agree. And I would mention that no other state official or local government official, particularly those, earning $30,000 to $50,000 a year and a full-time overtime job, has unsubstantiated, unsustained complaints disseminated to the general public and potentially put up on the internet. And it's just not fair. It's not appropriate to our law enforcement. As I mentioned before, that 30% of our law enforcement in Maryland are Black and minority law enforcement. So this is going to harm all of our communities. And if I think it's a reasonable approach, considering the fact that apparent bipartisan discussions has resulted in the expungement after 3 years. So if we're going to have an expungement, then we need to protect the process for that.
Absolutely. And I think we have lots of conversations in this body about justice. And I support, as the body knows, this committee knows, I voted for many bills tied to restorative justice. I voted for many bills for prison reform. And, and I support all these things. I think it's very important. I think it's a good value. I think it's an American value for people to get a second chance This isn't even about a second chance. These are things that people, were not substantiated for. These are about things that, they were accused of and cleared of. And so what concerns me about this is we talk about justice and we talk about things we're working on. And we've talked about the difference between justice and maybe revenge and these type of things. This piece of this concerns me that we're inching a little bit away from justice on this one specific piece, and I will be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Delegate Arakan, then Delegate Fisher.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks for bringing this amendment forward. Obviously, I'm supportive of it. I mean, even legislators can't have their ethics violations pulled through PIAs. I don't know if you were aware of that, but I specifically reached out today for guidance on that from our ethics department, and they said no. So I'd love to see an amendment that would make it so that all of the unsubstantiated ethics complaints on every single member of this body would also be available to the public to see, because I think we have even more power in some cases than police officers do, and we should be even more accountable to the public as we've been elected. So I think it's embarrassing that members of this body have their private matters all wrapped up tight and no one gets to know about them. But somebody that's working their butt off on the streets every day is going to have their unsubstantiated things aired out so that people can basically paint them as bad people, even if there's no evidence to substantiate anything that's been alleged towards them. I think I think you should consider adding legislators into this amendment, because I would certainly love to read that file. I bet it's this thick. So thanks for this amendment, and I will definitely be supporting it.
Delegate Juanita Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's so much I could say from the last 10 minutes of rhetoric that we had to listen to. But the one thing I wanted to just point out for the record is that compared to any other position that was named by my colleagues' comments, this is the one position that can take the life of someone else. This is the one position that is jury, judge, and executioner versus any other thing that was brought up by my colleagues. And so with that, I will end my comment right there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no further requests for recognition, we will take the vote on Delegate Cox's amendment ending in 625. All those in favor of the amendment ending in 625, please raise your hands. All right. Delegates Arakan, Cham, Grammer, McComas, Cox, Malone, and Griffith. All of those opposed to the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Shetty, Conaway, Cardin, Davis, Watson, Anderson, Lopez, Fisher, Bartlett, Atterbury, Crutchfield, Jones. The amendment fails. 7-2-12. Delegate Cox, you have two more, one ending in 722, one ending in 621.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 621.
621. Dylan, if you'd please put it up. It says that a record is a personnel record for the purposes of section if the record relates to a complaint unless. All right, Delegate Cox, tell us what your idea here with the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and my friends on the committee. This is a simple, I think, middle bridge to ensure the protection of law enforcement while allowing the transparency that this bill intends. Right now, as it stands today, any MPIA request, if this bill passes, will include unsubstantiated claims. unsustained claims being released potentially on the internet to the general public, even though they've been ruled as false or unfounded. What's even worse is that those complaints will no longer have to be filed under penalty of perjury. So as it stands, you're going to have a very significant uptick in people filing false complaints against officers that they don't like. And the result is they're going to be trying to find some kind of settlement with their pursuit of legal fees and damages for falsely filed complaints because they're not swearing under oath as to the facts. And then these falsely stated complaints, unsworn complaints, will be released to the public, smearing the officer for life. And that's unconscionable. It needs to be fixed. It's a simple fix, and I think that's what this amendment does. And here's what the amendment does. It simply says that if it's unsworn, then you can't release it. So, but if it is sworn, it will be released. So if somebody is going to say, look, I'm putting my name to this under penalty of perjury, this complaint, then it would be subject to release under the MPIA. But if they're not going to swear to it, if they're not going to put their name to this and their testimony under oath that these facts are true and in fact occurred, then it shouldn't be released. It's a simple amendment. I would move the amendment. Thank you.
Motion on the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Further discussion? I'm going to go now with Delegate Grammer, then Griffith, and Arakan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to speak in support of the amendment. I think when we speak a lot about what a lot of people perceive the problems are with this disclosure, I think the amendment helps handle this. And I think it helps weed out a lot of the bigger concerns that we have about potential misuse of this portion of the disclosure. So I think it's fair. I think it's a simple amendment, and I think it deals with a lot of the problems that we're trying to get away with, do away with in the bigger reform of this bill. So I'll be supporting it, and I hope you can too.
Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a question not only for Delegate Cox, but also Mr. Chairman. Is Delegate Cox's assessment of what the bill does and what this amendment would do accurate?
I'm sorry.
I apologize.
The question is, as I understand it from Delegate Cox, that he says basically that the record should not be available to the public unless the complaint itself was made under penalty of perjury. This committee for years, in fact, has dealt with issues and in fact passed legislation, I think, when I was but a mere legislative shadow of my former self. In my first term, serving on Judiciary with Delegate Anderson, when we said that people did not need to get a record notarized or made under, I think it was made under penalty of perjury. Certainly it was when they were notarized, because that served as a deterrent. In the bill, it talks about, in the current structure of House Bill 670, there are two ways that you can go forward. If it's anonymous complaint, I think it's made under penalty of perjury. If it's not an anonymous complaint, they're making the complaint and coming forward themselves, and they didn't have to make it under penalties of perjury. In either case, the issue here is, in the opinion of the chair, is that I would ask for the committee to oppose the amendment, is that the issue is, if what we've come to as a committee and what we did when we passed House Bill 670 before, is we said that these complaints should be available to the public, should not be considered to be personnel records. And to put further barriers in front of it now, after we've kind of taken the position that they should not be personnel records, is sort of counterindicated by what we've done as a committee and what the stand that actually now both the House and the Senate have taken on this issue. So with that, Delegate Griffith, if you'd like to
Well,
continue, that's fine.
Well, I just have one more question. I guess the question is, why would we not protect unsubstantiated claims? Why would we reject this amendment? I mean, beyond the fact that it wasn't, it's not on the bill now, it's not on the Senate version.
Well, if I may.
On the merits, why wouldn't we on the merits of the amendment?
Because
Delegate Cox, answer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just real quickly, I mean, to answer the concern about putting barriers as a reason not to support it, as you're asking, Delegate Griffith, and as Mr. Chair mentioned, that's not what the amendment does. There's no barrier. In fact, it would be an opt-in, all right? So just as the chair mentioned, it's an either or. You don't have to do it under oath. And all this amendment says is if you choose not to file it under oath, then there may be a question why. We don't want to have a barrier, but we don't want to smear the officer either because it's not under oath. And that's the justice issue. And we're talking about real justice here for real people. So I would move the amendment, and I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
I think
Other people to talk, and then we'll go from there. Delegate Arikan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for another really thoughtful and well drawn up amendment that I think puts excellent guardrails on this portion of the legislation. So what we could be seeing if we don't accept this amendment is that we could have a neo-Nazi who decided he didn't like a particular Black police officer, and that guy could literally make complaints every single day for weeks and weeks, and that poor person is going to have to go through this whole disciplinary process and then have all of those complaints be available to the public. That is insane and it's atrocious. And I think that this amendment is really simple, and it says that if you don't have the spine to put your name on it, then maybe the public shouldn't be exposed to that particular complaint. Isn't that right? Isn't that what your amendment does?
Yes, that's exactly well said, Delegate. And that's the intent and the point. I mean, it's not about creating any kind of barrier, but it's about protecting what we all know, especially as lawyers. We all know what happens. The ability for people that have wrong intent to willfully smear others is a commonplace issue. And so I think that this is a way to say, look, fine, you want to file your complaint, you want to release through the MPIA if that's the intent of the legislature, but not if it's not sworn to under oath.
Yeah, that seems really, really simple and common sense. And it's not trying to stop the public from understanding what's going on. It's trying to make sure that the information they're getting is has some veracity to it. It's a low bar to me, and it makes a lot of sense on a section of the legislation that has utterly zero guardrails whatsoever, in my opinion. So I'm a big fan of this amendment. Thanks for putting it forward.
Delegate McComas, then Delegate Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess what I'm a little concerned about is I have been around a little bit, and I remember when Valerio and a bunch of us were going to the central lockup, and somebody had a T-shirt said "Stop Snitching," and so Joe stopped him and was inquiring about it. And the point is that there are a lot of people that do not like the police, and so they're going to. And a lot of times they're going to know exactly what to do to make life horrible and miserable. And I mean, we've seen enough police in other jurisdictions, like New York City, 2 officers shot in the head, just sitting there trying to, eat a meal in their patrol car. And I think that not having people sign their name under oath is going to be a problem if we just let everybody go and make accusations, and could set some officers up one way or the other. I mean, and kind of fuel the fire down there. I mean, the community and police are not, there's no love right now. And I think that we should be doing things that create a better environment. And I think this is just setting the police up for problems. And you know, they're good. People are going to know how to use it and use it against the police. Certainly we've got bad actors, but you know, I think if things change a little bit, the bad actors are going to go. I think people, their own colleagues are going to kind of rat them out. And I think that this has a potential to really harm the officers and kill some innocent people. And I think it's what I always say, you know, legislation, it's got unintended consequences, and this could be an unintended collateral consequence, and it's serious. And you know, it cuts both ways. Thank you.
Delegate Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move the previous question. I am legit happy, though, that we are going to be able to go to the floor saying we've had lengthy discussions on numerous minority party amendments and that there was a full discussion had on this bill. It wasn't raced. But move the previous question, Mr. Chair.
It's a motion for the previous question. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
No.
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 Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Oh, cool. Stand up. All right, we're on the amendment. All in favor, this is the amendment ending in 621 from Delegate Cox. All those in favor will please raise your hands, your physical hands. Delegates Grammer, Erican, Griffith, Cham, McComas, Malone. What am I missing? I missed somebody? Cox. Delegate Cox, are you still on? Oh, there you are. Got it. Saw it. Missed it. 7. All those opposed, please raise your hands. Delegates Shetty, Williams, Moon, Davis, Cardin, Anderson, Conaway, Watson, Lopez, Crutchfield, Atterbury, Bartlett, Fisher, and Jones. The amendment fails. All right, we have one last, and this is amendment ending in 722. And again, I believe this goes to the issue of signing a statement under penalty of perjury. And it also includes a restriction on releasing the record to a third party. Correct, Delegate Cox?
Well, it's slightly different, Mr. Chair. This is not a complainant. This is a person in interest. And
okay.
Presently, as we are aware, the intent of the Maryland General Assembly is that only a person in interest shall receive a copy of the record. Unfortunately, with this new legislation, there is nothing, there are no guardrails preventing that information from being released improperly to third parties. We're talking about some of the most private details that only a person in interest is allowed to see. And also, you know, obviously the prosecutors involved or the investigators. This simply says that if you obtain a record with all of this detail, all of this personal information and all of the various and ancillary documents and videos and obviously information that may be very sensitive information. It usually would be very sensitive information. That's why it's protected by the Maryland General Assembly in the statute from being released to anyone other than a person of interest. And that this just says that the person of interest shall then do what everybody has to do in a Department of Social Services case, which says that if you're going to obtain the file, then you have to sign a statement under penalty of perjury that you will not release that to third parties because that, you know, they're not persons in interest. That's the simple amendment. And with that, I would move the amendment.
Motion on the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. We'll have discussion. Delegate Grammer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had my hand raised mistakenly.
All right, never mind. Delegate Erican.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Another great amendment, Delegate Cox. Another opportunity for us to put some guardrails on this situation. So am I sounding normal? Because everybody's sort of frozen on
You're
my side.
sounding as normal as you usually do.
Subtle.
It's
Subtle.
fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just lightening the mood.
I love
Do
you
I
very
sound
much
normal?
too.
I don't- What is normal?
We're tired. That's why our faces aren't moving.
Okay, well, we're really just getting started. So Delegate Cox, could you just sort of run me through like a scenario where this would apply?
Well, sure. There's sometimes sensitive information in a file that would involve minors, for instance. Presently, if you're in a DSS case, that information cannot be released to third parties. When you're a part of the case, you have to keep that privileged and confidential. There was a recent thing that just occurred in Baltimore City, which is indicative of the concern. And if I can find the article I had printed off, well, I can't seem to find it here, but let me explain. It's in the Baltimore Sun, and the mother of someone convicted and serving time in jail during or waiting. I'm sorry, maybe not convicted, but in jail and waiting trial. The mother witnessed some video from the file, and as part of that video, recorded secretly on her cell phone the identity of individuals in the video that she believed were quote unquote snitching. She then relayed that information into the prison system and made comments to the effect of, actually, I think I do have it here. All rats must go. And there was a discussion about the so-called snitch or the witness. It really was a witness, not a snitch. It was a witness that actually talked to the police, and that the witness would be hurt. So the mother was rightfully arrested for that. But there's nothing preventing in this MPIA bill from that becoming a serious and significant and ongoing problem. That's what this amendment does, is simply says, you know what, as legislators and as members of the Maryland General Assembly, we're going to make sure that we protect people involved in the process from these third-party releases to potentially be harmed.
Yeah, that's really scary. And as the bill is written, does it specify, and I don't have the language right in front of me, does it specify when, I guess there's some guardrails on it, like they can't release it until after, like, I don't know, the final, adjudication is completed or something? Does it say, is that already in this new version that we have here?
That's in the bill that's in the current law. It's in 4351, custodian inspection by a person in interest only to the extent the inspection would interfere with a valid and proper law enforcement, deprive another person right to a fair trial or an impartial adjudication, constitute an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy, disclose the identity of a confidential source, disclose an investigative technique or procedure, prejudice an investigation, or endanger the life or physical safety of an individual.
Okay, yeah, so this would just be sort of another little guardrail to put on here to make sure that that we are protecting the victims and the witnesses and everybody else involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't seem like it's too much to ask. And I hopefully we'll be able to come to some kind of agreement on it, because I don't think this is reaching very much at all. So I really appreciate you spending the time trying to craft something that's functional like this. It's very, very, very helpful. Hopefully we'll be able to have the whole body agree to it.
Delegate Bartlett?
Well, I put my hand down, but okay, thanks. I oppose the amendment because I think that we're going to get there one day, but we're not there yet, where we don't have bad actors in law enforcement and people are not afraid for their lives when it comes to law enforcement. Some of these people that we're talking about are children. I know we all saw the 5-year-old being interrogated and pushed around by law enforcement. And that 5-year-old, whereas their parent may have been the one who filed the complaint, that 5-year-old is still also a person of interest and also a victim. So I think that when needed, it could have very well been a cousin who needs that information, or someone else who needs that information. It could also be this information is needed to show a pattern of a particular bad actor, as we have said previously. So I think that the fear is real. I think it is a real, there is a real retaliation with respect to the results of what can happen when there is a bad actor. And I think that at some point we will be in harmony, but we aren't there yet.
Thank you. Delegate Griffith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just one clarifying question. When does this bill take effect if it passes?
October 1, 21.
And so will this body meet again to fix this prior to it going into effect?
We are not scheduled to come back after April the 3rd, whenever that is, April the 12th, until the next legislative session.
So my deep concern is, and I agree with Delegate Bartlett, the situation we saw in Montgomery County was horrifying. It was heartbreaking for me. We instantly put our kids in those shoes, and it creates empathy and fear, even for me and my kids. That was a terrible situation and terrible example. It's something we got to fix. But I also think about unsubstantiated claims against law enforcement. And I was thinking about their kids, for good cops who have unsubstantiated claims against them. And if that information is shared out over social media, and then those individuals and those families and those homes, much like some members of the General Assembly, get targeted, we got to think three-dimensionally here. And to Delegate Bartlett's point, we want to fix it and we want to get there. We have a moment right now to fix it and get there. And to reject these amendments that would protect innocent law enforcement officers' kids from potential anything, just because it may take an extra day. I just don't understand. I don't understand. Why can't we just make a simple fix on these things and move this ball down the field? I'll be supporting this amendment.
Delegate Cham?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee. I think we're all running on fumes right about now, but this is hard work, good work that we're doing on behalf of all Marylanders. So, and to Delegate Cox, thank you. Thank you for bringing forth this amendment and your previous amendments. And I felt would really tighten the bill up and make it more palatable and appropriate for all of us to be able to agree to. So certainly the one that we're speaking on now, making sure that the person who's wants the record, they don't share it with the third party. I think that's very important and imperative that we do as legislators. So I too will be supporting this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Moon?
Move the previous question, Mr.
There's a
Chair.
motion for the previous question. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Say aye.
No.
Anyone
No.
opposed? In the
No.
opinion of the
Roll
chair,
call, Mr. Chair.
opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Well done. All right, we're on the amendment. We're on the amendment. All in favor of Delegate Cox's amendment ending in 722, please raise your hands. Delegates Grammer, Griffith, Arakan, Cham, McComas, Malone, Cox. Who am I missing? All right, anyone in opposition to the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Shetty, Conaway, Cardin, Davis, Watson, Anderson, Moon, Lopez, Fisher, Bartlett, Atterbury, Crutchfield, Jones. The amendment is defeated.
Mr. Chair, you missed me.
Oh, Delegate Williams. It's 714. All right, we are on the bill as amended. There are no further amendments in the chair's possession.
I have an amendment I sent over.
All right. The amendment does.
Make sure I got the right one. Is it? Yeah, that's the one. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment bans no-knock warrants. And again, I don't take this lightly. I think, and this time, even today, and a lot of the issues we've been talking about, I think we're really ignoring the extent of the problems that we have. I think when you look at how these issues get politicized, Breonna Taylor, you know, we use that issue for months and months and months to talk about the issue. A lot of people use that issue to run for election, and we completely ignore Duncan Lemp and what happened to his family. And I'll make a lot of the arguments that I made on the previous amendments that I offered. I'd ask everybody to consider here, what are we going to use these for in the future? When we are continuously declining to prosecute drug crimes, which we know are lead to a large majority of the violent offenses in Maryland, Baltimore, around our state, what are we going to use these for in the future? And you know, when you see President Biden say things like, you know, hey, Supreme Court, we need you to rule that cops don't need a warrant to come in your house and take your weapons. I mean, it's just terrifying. It's just terrifying. And I think a lot of people are scared. And I think we're making the wrong policy decision here. I think some of the tweaks are positive for warrants in general that we've made. But I think we've fallen way short. I think we need to take a bigger, broader look at the issuance of warrants. I think asserting that we need to do it at a person's home and just blast down their door when we see such blatant failures in the warrants themselves on people, frankly, who have not only not committed a violent crime, they haven't committed any crime. And you know, how many more bills are we going to see about you know, criminalizing some sort of gun ownership? When we see the courts resolve some of these questions, what if they say, hey, it's legal to create a law where this particular type of storage of firearms is now illegal? These are crimes that are going to lead to allegations that are just going to spiral out of control. And I'm like afraid for the future here. So I don't offer this amendment lightly. I believe it's the right thing to do. I think we're going to look back and say we made a mistake here. I'm terrified of where the next case is going to happen, or why they're going to receive one of these. So I know I didn't receive a second last time. I hope I do this time. I don't take this lightly, but on behalf of the safety of, frankly, individuals, but police officers themselves, I would move the amendment, and I'd ask for a second.
Second. There's a second. Further discussion on the amendment? Go now to Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, you know, this is a tough conversation we're having. And And this conversation that we've had, on some of these issues that started last year that's moved through this year, has certainly changed me. There are bills that I've voted on in this committee over the last year that I never would have thought I would have voted on. When we start talking to people and hearing testimony, and there's still some issues that I'm steadfast on, but there's some of these issues that I definitely, have voted with the majority party on. One of those issues, for example, it's not necessarily related to criminal justice or prison reform, but the repeal of the state song. 5 years ago, I never would have thought I'd done that, but understand the issue, being educated by my colleagues on the issue. I proudly, cast a green vote for the repeal. And this is another one of those issues, listening to constituents, listening to friends, neighbors, and many of you that I plan to support this amendment. Thank you. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity right now, and we can do it right here and end it forever and I. Thank you.
Delegate Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the delegate for bringing the amendment because, again, this is something that cuts across all parties and all backgrounds, whether it's Duncan Lemp in a fancy Potomac house, beautiful Potomac neighborhood, or whether it's regular folks in poor neighborhoods throughout the state. What we're looking at is an issue that really should be brought into consideration for just elimination, because there's no reason. And the law enforcement I've talked with have all indicated to me that this is not something that they pursue or use, that it's very rarely ever done. And I think that we're at a point where we need to make sure that our Constitution is protected for all of Maryland. And so I would absolutely stand in support of it. I appreciate the amendment.
Delegate Cardin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just say that I think that the committee and even the Senate, to a certain extent, if I can give them some kudos, have done a terrific job. As you know, I'm very interested in this issue. And while the standard technically is down, the issues of the standard are still in there. It's going to be very, very people's rights are going to be very well protected with this language. I think it goes far enough. I am looking forward to supporting the language as it is. I do not think that this amendment is necessary to protect our citizens. And with that, I will ask us to move the previous.
Oh, come on.
Aye.
There's a motion for the previous question. All in favor of the motion for the previous question, say aye.
Aye.
And all opposed?
No.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We're on the amendment. This is Delegate Grammer's amendment. It's the amendment ending in 128. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Erican, Grammer, McComas, Ham, Cox, Malone, Griffith.
Can I explain my vote, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you can explain your vote.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Through the discourse of this issue in this committee, we have had people say these judges are issuing these warrants and not even reading it. In Breonna Taylor's case, they articulated how judges issue these warrants. They're reading them for minutes. They're issuing several warrants out at the same time. I just can't. I take all the bills and issues I bring here very seriously. I think we're making the wrong decision here, and that's why I'm supporting the amendment today.
All those opposed, please raise your hands. Delegates.
We abstain.
Shetty, Delegates Shetty, Davis, Cardin, Conaway, Williams, Newman, Anderson, Watson, Lopez, Crutchfield, Atterbury, Fisher, and Jones. The amendment fails. We are now on the bill as amended. Is there a motion on the bill?
Move favorable.
Favorable
A
second.
motion for a favorable and a second. Discussion on the bill as amended. Delegate McComas, then Erican, then Grammer, then Cox. Delegate McComas, you're muted.
Sure. I guess I'm going to go back to my complaint is that we're mixing apples and oranges here. It seems like all the time. And I just, in other words, it doesn't violate the single subject rule, but it comes about as close as you possibly can to it. I mean, to put police accountability and stuff with the search warrants and police misconduct together. I mean, the no knock with the search warrants, well, the no knock and then the thing about, well, what records can you look at? I mean, I think they ought to be separate, and that I got a problem with the way we had this massive bill, and then the Senate has all these separate 9 bills, and so to get out of that whole thing, we're putting stuff that was in the massive bill, the 670, into these other bills, but they did. It's just crazy. It's hard to track, and it's just hard to figure out where we are and what we're doing. And so I'm voting against it just because I'm like confused.
Delegate Erican.
I feel similar to Sue. I think that our constituents are going to have a lot of trouble understanding how the final products of a lot of the police accountability stuff is coming out of here. It's been, I think, way too quick at the end with lots of changes for our citizens to even know what we're really doing. I think that is really disappointing, that we're trying to do this so quickly. And also, I'm pretty surprised that literally the entire committee broke on party line in opposition to quite directly the Breonna Taylor amendment. Like, I'm just shocked. I'm literally shocked. Like, it's like the Twilight Zone up in here today. So I will be voting no on this bill.
Delegate Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, members of the committee, I know that everyone cares deeply about protecting, our constituents. That's what we come to Annapolis for. That's why we have had these significant considerations. And this process, although I believe there's flawed aspects to it, I know everyone has had good faith in trying to reach reasonable results. Problem. Oh, I'm sorry. The problem that I see is the lack of a bipartisan approach to one of the biggest deals in Maryland history regarding how we do policing. And as we've seen in the last year, there's a lot of, there've been a lot of rioting, there've been a lot of marching, been a lot of public demonstrations about this issue. And the importance at this hour to ensure that we are a one Maryland, a united Maryland, would lend the consideration of ensuring that these bills are bipartisan and balanced and protective of both our citizens and the citizens that are defending and protecting us for sometimes peanuts on the dollar. I mean, we're talking about young men and women starting out their careers, some of them, with little babies at home. And as we saw in Colorado recently, they're not making much money. And when they die, they leave, wife and orphans, or they leave family behind, they leave children. And what are we doing? Well, here's what this bill does, Mr. Chair. This bill empowers SWAT teams to come in and without notice, potentially have another Breonna Taylor situation. This bill empowers, with your votes, criminals to file false complaints and disseminate that on the internet against any law enforcement officer they wish to do so against. And what does it do for protecting our citizens? Nothing. So for that, I'll be voting no.
Delegate Juanita Fisher, then Griffith, then Moon.
I'd like to move to previous question.
I'm going to recognize Delegate Griffith, and then I'll recognize Delegate Moon. Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of all the aspects of these bills that we heard, this is the one that I'm the concerned with for all the reasons we stated and a variety more. This bill does not just affect the law enforcement officers. This affects their families. If a bad actor decides to publish the information of a false complaint against a law enforcement officer, the whole world gets to see it. And it's not like the whole world that you post it on a lamppost or you mail it to some folks. You post it online and instantly the entire world has access to that. And not just them, but their wife, their husband, their kids. We are putting people in harm's way. And I'm really struck by part of the debate on this during subcommittee, where I pressed back on this. And the comment was made that, well, we don't get these protections, why should they? You know what that is? That's not equity, that's revenge. If we don't get these protections, they shouldn't either. That's a revenge comment. This piece right here makes it, and the thing is, we all know it. We can't deny it. This piece is as heartbreaking as any other piece of legislation that we've dealt with in any direction. And we're passing it clear-eyed, knowing
Hold on.
nobody denies that this will happen. No one denies what I'm saying, and no one will in good conscience, because it's true what I'm saying. I can't for the life of me think why we would potentially put good people who did nothing wrong in harm's way. At the same time, we are working on a number of restorative justice issues in the same breath with expungements, with protecting records on judiciary case search, which I voted for, thank you, by the way, with things like the Walter Lomax Act, right? So on one side, we are doing the right thing by people that were wrongly accused, and it should be, and that's justice. But then we're going to put people in harm's way and their families in harm's way for something just as unsubstantiated is absolutely beyond the pale. I cannot believe we are doing this. I'll be voting no, and I'm going to fight this as hard as I can, as long as I can.
Delegate Fisher indicates you had actually a question. Delegate Fisher?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I wanted to clarify that with the amendments, the bill is still named Anton's Law.
Yes, it's the chair's understanding that it is still named Anton's Law.
Okay, and then I had my move to previous question.
All right. I think that's what we'll do. Move the previous question. All in favor of moving the previous question, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Aye.
No.
Oh,
Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We're on the bill as amended. We're going to do a roll call. The vice chair, unfavorable with amendment. The vice chair who's still muted.
I said yes like 5 times.
Okay. All right, Delegate Anderson,
Yes, one time.
Delegate Arakan.
Yes, and to explain my vote, I thought that Delegate Griffith and Delegate Cox made really eloquent speeches on what's wrong with this bill and how harmful it's going to be. And I just want to make sure the record shows that I was told today that 5 of my Baltimore County police officers have already resigned over this. So that's pretty sad, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that. So I'm a no.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Cardin,
Yes.
Delegate Conaway,
Yes.
Delegate Cox,
No.
Delegate Crutchfield,
Yes.
Delegate Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Juanita Fisher,
Yes.
Delegate Grammer,
No.
Delegate Griffith,
No.
Delegate Rachel Jones,
Yes.
Delegate Rachel Jones? Yes. Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate Malone,
No, and to explain my vote, I think my fellow delegate from Hartford pointed out, we have a lot of concerns about unintended consequences, and we very much need to have that here. I think we're going to dramatically shift how law enforcement is handled and those willing to go into law enforcement. And the problem is good people are no longer want to go in, or no longer going to want to go into law enforcement. Good people who are eligible to retire, who are in law enforcement, are going to retire. Those that are close to retirement are going to basically be marking the calendar until they can retire. And then many of those who decide to go into law enforcement are not going to be the best that we want. And I think we're going to propound and expand the problems that we're concerned about with this legislation. So I'm very much a no vote.
Delegate McComas,
No, and to explain my vote, I have my little neighbor across the street is one of the MTA police officers. He's a really good kid. And every night he leaves, his mother worries about whether he's going to come back. And by voting in favor of this bill, I would just be making it more and more harder for her. And she'd probably end up with a heart attack because she's going to worry about her son. I don't think we're going to help law enforcement, and I don't think we're going to improve the community. I think we're going to have a situation where the community is going to be terrorized. So I'm voting no on this.
Mr. Chair,
Delegate Moon,
sorry.
Delegate Moon,
Yes, other places do this without incident.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Cham,
No, and if I may explain,
okay,
in the right direction, I think we have swung the pendulum too far. I can't imagine being a police officer and I'm a Black woman. I know many of us have died under the unfortunate bad actors of a police officer. I get it. I totally understand it. Being a police officer is not easy. I think we're putting the handcuffs on police officers to protect us and keep us safe. And as a Black woman, I can say that with confidence. We have to get rid of these bad police officers and protect our citizens and constituents at the same time. But I think this bill is just far-reaching. The pendulum is just too far, and it needs a little bit more work. So for that, I'll be voting no.
Delegate Ron Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Williams, Delegate Nicole Williams,
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Chair, and I'm voting yes. I'm voting yes because I get worried every time my godson leaves the house to go hang out with his friends and worry whether he's going to come back home in one piece. I am voting yes because I worry about my nephews and when they leave the house, whether or not they're going to come back home in one piece. So yes, I am voting yes, Mr. Chair, on this piece of legislation.
thank you very much. The motion for a favorable with amendment is adopted 14-7. Members of the committee, at 6:50, we're going to take a 10-minute break and meet again at 7 p.m. Just take a little break. We've been going for the better part of 2 hours. Need a little break. Come back at 7. We will be leaving the live stream open. Please turn off your cameras if you would like. And we will be back at 7 p.m. 7.
Yeah. You did?
John, you're unmuted.
Thanks.
Everyone needs to mute, please. Thank you.
Hey, Dylan, can you hear me? I'm having it says unable to start the video. The host has stopped the video. I don't know what's going on.
Sure, I'll turn on everybody's cameras in just a moment.
Okay.
Oh, are you thirsty for some more? Let's go.
We're
We're still live streaming, Delegate.
We're live, Delegate.
Oh my God.
April Fools.
No, not April Fools. We're actually still live.
I should probably specify that this is 0-calorie ginger beer that I'm drinking. While it looks like a Heineken, it is ginger beer.
Naturally.
0 calories? That doesn't taste yummy, sound yummy.
Oh my gosh, it is so good. It is
Really?
so good, yes. The Trader Joe's, it's called Reed's, all natural, 0 sugar.
Oh, I have to try that.
Yep.
Hey, Dylan, I still can't turn the camera on. It says the host is stopping it.
That was intentional.
Well, Delegate Bartlett, I just wanted to
thank you
so much for bringing that information about that green bottle. I mean, you know, for a long, long time, I've been thinking about, wow, that green bottle, it needs some explanation. And then you came forward with a great explanation. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to vote for that explanation.
This is why we've missed you, Kurt.
Well, I miss Kurt. Everybody's laughing.
We missed
What did I
you. We definitely miss you.
I missed you guys. Trust me, way more than you could have missed me.
I was playing the theme from Welcome Back, Carter, but you all couldn't hear it for you, Kurt. They couldn't hear it. I don't know how to.
I was playing it too. I was playing it also.
Really? Yeah, I'd have to amp up my mic to the point that they might start knocking on the walls and telling me to turn it down.
Here.
I'm going to remind my colleagues that we're still live streaming.
Yeah, we are still live streaming.
Yeah. We're still human too.
You hear that?
Welcome back. Your dreams were yours to get out. Out of control. Same old place that you laugh about. Well, the change to come around. Those dreams and things you ran around. You want to read it. You want to read just like you can when you try. Young dreams your life. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
It's time to walk over to the building.
Welcome back. We always could spot it. That was all for you, Delegate Anderson.
Delegate Anderson, can I sing you a song?
Sure, certainly. Who's that?
Okay. Delegate Chance.
Oh, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we have this song in church that we say, "Welcome, Holy Spirit," but you're not the Holy Spirit. So I'm going to make.
Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, we are still being live streamed.
Yes. So I can't sing it. It's appropriate.
Well, can I
Sing
FaceTime
it, girl.
you?
Just sing your heart away.
Mr. Chair, we're just showing our human side.
Okay.
Welcome back, Kurt. We're glad to have you. We're glad to see your face in this place. Glad to see you, Kurt.
I'm her stage manager. Y'all call me for contract.
Mr. Chair, on the next bill, did you get my updated amendment they drafted?
Yes. Yes, we have 3 amendments from you, Delegate Griffith.
Should only be 2.
Should only be 2. Oh, okay. All right.
2.0 and 2.5 are the right ones. The other one was an error.
All right. We will figure that out here.
Thank you.
I see. Okay, I've got it. All right, let's go back. I think the majority of the committee is there. Thank you very much, Delegate Cham. I think I could see very much that Delegate Anderson appreciated that greatly. We are back in a voting session in the House Judiciary Committee. And we are now on Senate Bill 71. When the hold was put on, we were on the committee's amendments. The committee's amendments were moved and seconded, needed to be adopted. So we're on the happy to take discussion on the committee's amendments. Delegate. Delegate McComas. You're not.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to just say I finally got my one amendment, which pertains to 71. But you tell me when you want to do it, after you get the committee stuff done.
You should email it. You should email it to the committee staff, and we'll go from there. Okay.
Okay. All right. I'll do that right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Juanita Fisher. We're on the committee's amendments.
Oh, no question. I was going to just make.
All right, that's fine. So we're on the committee's amendments. All in favor of the committee.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Can you?
Well, and I'm actually, I need to take a step back. I actually think that we did the committee's, we did the committee's amendments here. I think we took that, we took that vote because I marked it down as 14-7. And can I just confirm that with staff and with council? I believe we did that already.
Yes, I believe so.
Yes, okay, so we are on the further amendments that have been offered. And so we're gonna go to that and so we'll do that. So we've already adopted the committee's amendments. That's why I write things down. Delegate Cox has an amendment ending in 423. Delegate Griffith has amendments ending in 920 and 725. Delegate McComas, I understand, is emailing an amendment to the office that she has received, and that's fine. Why don't we go with Delegate Cox first with his one single at 423. Delegate Cox, please tell us what the amendment does.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment is a practical fix regarding an issue that involves I think even the ACLU has weighed in on concerns with HIPAA and other privacy protections. So whenever an officer is recording video, he's capturing conversations, faces, and information that is not necessarily lawful, particularly when they enter a hospital. And so there might be times when the officer is required either by law, rule or regulation, or by request, by a lawful request by a private citizen to cease recording. And so in this bill, all that my amendment would do would be to accommodate that and to not then disqualify an officer from testifying just because they were required by law to turn their camera off. And with that, I would move the amendment.
So motion on the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Discussion on the amendment. I see Delegate Grammer and Griffith. Delegate Grammer.
Can we put the amendment up? I'm looking to
We
find.
return the amendment up, that'd be fine.
Thank you.
Delegate Delegate Griffith.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I want to confirm not only with the maker of the amendment, but also with the chairman on does this amendment accomplish what the maker of the amendment wants to accomplish? I know we've had some issues this year occasionally where the amendment didn't necessarily do what we were intending to do. Mr. Chairman, in your judgment or from council, does this amendment do what the amendment maker wants it to do?
I can say, Mr. Chair, yes, it does, and I'll defer to you as well, but.
It's not my amendment. I'm not here to argue for the amendment. So I'm not gonna get drawn in necessarily.
Sorry. So could I get an opinion from council? Does this amendment accomplish what the amendment maker is trying to do here?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. I mean, so I guess my simple question for the body is, then why wouldn't we adopt it? We do have privacy concerns and they're legitimate and they're bipartisan. So I can't even think for the life of me why on earth we wouldn't accept this very common sense bipartisan amendment that's supported, as far as I can tell, by just about anybody, but just about everybody. So I'm proud to support another good common sense amendment that if the only argument is it's not currently in the bill, and that's the reason we rejected, that's not a reason to reject the amendment. So I'll be supporting. Thank you.
Delegate Wanika Fisher.
Move to previous question.
There are a couple more. We're going to take those and then I'll hear that motion. Delegate Arakan.
Maybe Delegate Moon wants to put his hand down too. I'm assuming that's what he wanted to do as well. Yeah, there he goes. Okay, I also think this is a super simple amendment. Just looking at it, does not apply to circumstances where the officer is prohibited by law or regulation from using it or is asked to turn it off. I mean, I honestly thought that we had already done this. I thought that maybe that was on 670, but I thought that we had already put some guardrails in place around this issue. And I'm a little confused if this is not already in here, why in the world are we not putting it back in? Because I thought we had, and maybe council can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we had already discussed at length the need for guardrails on this in case there's some like a victim of some kind that doesn't want to be recorded. Didn't we decide to protect them? I thought that's what we had done. Council, didn't we discuss that? And is that what we had in our version of the bill?
Our bill didn't specifically address that, but the Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission has issued standards and guidelines for the use of body worn cameras. And
okay, so this would
those.
supersede them then. So now the Maryland Police Training Standards Commission would not be able to do that, would not be able to limit the use of them to these, right? If this amendment doesn't get added, if we don't accept this amendment, then the commission can't implement this. They can't make any more policy that would say, don't turn your camera on or you're okay to turn it off, because the legislation doesn't allow for that. Is that correct?
I would think it would just kind of supplement what the Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission would require and not conflict with it.
So the way the bill is currently drafted, if we don't accept this amendment, you think that the Police Training Standards Commission can still themselves implement this amendment?
I think they already do.
They do. Yeah, now they do. I think they can
do,
right
and I
now.
don't think that anything in any of the bills would stop them from being able to do that.
But Mr. Chair, if I may, that the problem though is that they cannot statutorily permit an officer to testify when the bill prevents testimony without a cam, the cam being running. Having video feed is mandatory in order for an officer to testify. So unless you have the amendment in there, the purpose of the end result of the bill will be to prevent lawful officer testimony during situations where they turn their camera off under a reasonable basis to turn it off. That's in the amendment.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about.
Delegate Cardin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 3 reasons why I would recommend not passing this. Number one, Delegate Moon mentioned earlier in an earlier conversation that we can easily deal with when there's HIPAA violations or other issues that we can easily deal with blurring out images required by law. That's number one. Number two is per what Council just said, it sounds like it's unnecessary because this can be handled within regulation and probably be a lot easier to do it that way. Number three is it states in the amendment upon a lawful request. Well, what if there are 2 different people and one of them is requesting the body cam off, but the other one is somebody that does not want the body cam off? Then what does the officer do? So I think that there's going to be a lot of disjointed confusion in this. I think we should need to reject it.
If I could, Mr. Chair, this does not prevent, or excuse me, this does not require an officer to turn a camera off. Delegate Cardin is speaking of an entirely different scenario, has nothing to do with the amendment. The amendment is to allow officers to testify when they decide to turn their camera off because of the lawful request. They don't have to turn their camera off if somebody asks them to turn it off, if they're investigating and they have a basis to keep it on. But if they choose to do so because of the lawful request, if they're in somebody's private home, maybe somebody's not dressed, I don't know. There are many different scenarios where this is already in the case law. It's already across the whole country, the United States, where these issues arise. And all this amendment will do is simply say, the police officer can protect people's privacy if it's a lawful reason. They can turn it off and they can still testify. They're not prevented from testifying. So when they're walking through a hospital, this is what the ACLU has dealt with. When they're escorting a prisoner through the hospital, for instance, they can turn their cam off. But are they now going to be prevented? They would be prevented from testifying as to the actions, behaviors, and facts and matters of that person in their custody because they don't have a camera rolling. So this would protect that process. It's really a common sense approach, and it's something that is needed to make sure that we don't have unintended consequences.
Delegate Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think this is an issue. The body cam action or inaction has to be in violation of policy. So I just would like to move the previous question. Thank you.
And I, furthermore, I don't believe under the committee's amendments, I think the section that Delegate Cox is referring to was deleted. That it was deleted from the bill where it would have required or set some requirement that a police officer activate, it said that if a police officer activated or failed to activate a body worn camera in violation of the policy of the law enforcement agency, then it would create a rebuttable presumption that any testimony of the police officer sought to be introduced would be taken out. That's not in the bill anymore.
Mr. Chair, could you point me to the page of the interlineated, which was printed just this morning at 11 a.m. So if that's something that's changed.
Page 2.
Page 2.
The second page of the interlineated, looking at all the lines between 24 and 30, it's all struck.
And is that throughout the bill?
I'm looking for anything else. There's nothing else that would address that.
Well, I would certainly still move the amendment, Mr. Chair, and the reason is because this provides clarity. It actually ensures that the law is no longer, I mean, obviously striking out the rebuttable presumption issue is fine, but it doesn't expressly state that you can't object to an officer testifying when they turn their camera off, when there's now a new state policy to have the camera rolling. So for that reason, I would move the amendment.
All right, there's a motion and a second on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Erican, Grammer, Cham, McComas, Cox, Griffith, and Malone for 7. For all of those opposed to the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Moon, Shetty, Williams, Deborah Davis, Cardin, Conaway, Anderson, Watson, Bartlett, Jones, Crutchfield, Fisher, Lopez, and Atterbury. The amendment fails. 7-14. All right, we're now I will let Delegate McComas know that we have your amendment, but we'll go now to Delegate Griffith's amendment. Which one do you want to start out with? 920 or 725?
I would like to start with, I'm very, very sorry.
One is state's attorney's offices. The other is.
Start with the body worn camera amendment first, please.
Okay, so, all right, I think it's this one.
The device one, I think it's
920.
No, not 725. I'm very sorry. I'm very, very sorry.
725.
725, yes, sir.
So I think this is the one. The law enforcement agencies in paragraph 1 of the subsection being referred to on page 4 after line 30 of the bill shall receive funding from the states to comply. Is this the one you mean?
Yes, it is.
All right. Delegate Griffith, talk about what the bill does. Or
so what
it does. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm reopening the bill. I'm very, very sorry. Just 1 second. I just need to get right to my point where this is addressed in the bill. So so we talk a lot about local privilege and these things, and we've talked about that tonight. I support body-worn cameras. I think it's a great tool for transparency and for the public, and frankly, to defend good cops. So I think body-worn cameras is a great thing, and I think we should find a pathway to move this forward. My concern is the cost and the unfunded mandate on jurisdictions, and us imposing our will of costs on local jurisdictions to force them to raise taxes to pay for the will of the General Assembly. So in the bill, it talks about the State Department of State Police, Anne Arundel County Police Department, Howard County Police Department, and the Harford County Sheriff's Office. So what this amendment would do, it would provide funding to ensure that these jurisdictions and these departments can not only effectively implement the will of the General Assembly, but effectively implement it in line with best practices that will accomplish what it is we're trying to accomplish and respect local privilege, so we're not forcing an unfunded mandate to make these jurisdictions raise taxes to pay for this. Because even though we're not forcing them in many ways, we would be forcing them to raise taxes to pay for this, especially coming out of a global pandemic. And that's what the amendment would do. I think it's pretty simple. I think it's common sense. And I think it's respecting these jurisdictions who want to comply and want to do the right thing for all parties involved. So with that, I would move the amendment, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask everyone to resist this amendment. One, we've had all of these discussions before, so I cannot say that I appreciate all these lengthy speeches that I'm sure will be used in clips for your reelection campaign. But I do know that the Senate has spoken to the jurisdictions that were called out, and they are underway in terms of getting their body cameras, and that the time was pushed out so that we could get funding for body cameras or work with appropriations to get the funding. But I do know that Howard County, our county executive, already made an announcement a couple weeks ago that they're implementing a body camera program. Hartford County is underway. So I think we just need to press forward.
Delegate Eric
Mr. Chair,
Hand.
Mr. Chair, can I respond to that?
Briefly, yes, then Eric Hand, then Grammer.
Thank you. And I'm certainly not doing this for politics. I mean, I think one of the most compelling and appropriate comments of the entire session was when our chairman mentioned that we shouldn't be doing this for mailers or video clips. So I'm certainly not doing it for that. I'm just doing it trying to, and to be very transparent, I'm doing it primarily for my constituents and trying to consider the tax burden on them. But I didn't want to be selfish. I wanted to try to also extend that to other jurisdictions, not trying to certainly infringe on your jurisdiction, Madam Vice Chair. I respect your local privilege as well. But I didn't want to be just simply trying to amend this just for Hartford County. That was the intent of the amendment. Thank you.
Delegate Eric Hand.
I'm so enjoying this. This is crazy. So we just literally had a bunch of people give speeches about local courtesy. And I said local courtesy is dead. And now we have a section of the bill that affects 2 jurisdictions specifically, mine being one of them, and is going to force the people of my county to pay for something they may not be ready to pay for, and doesn't give them very much time to do it. And I'm sure people will still sit up here on soapboxes and talk about local courtesy repeatedly. And I just hope everyone remembers what this bill specifically does and that it singles out Hartford County.
Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to object to the previous comment. I don't think I'm going to be streaming my videos about aerial surveillance amendments to get reelected. I bring this because it's important to me, and the gentleman brings this amendment because it's important to him. So I take a bit of an objection to that. And frankly, every time we've heard about these freaking body cameras, which everyone supports for the last 5 years, everyone supports it, but they say we can't do this without funding. So what I have seen for the last year is memes about we're going to get body cameras. We're going to get no, you're not getting body cameras because these local jurisdictions can't fund it. They can't fund this. So if we're going to mandate this, which I think we should, I think it's quite a reasonable amendment to just help out. So I take a bit of an objection to that. I think this is the right thing to do.
Delegate Juanita Fisher.
I can't. You've got the wrong.
Delegate Juanita Fisher. Delegate McComas, you're not on mute. Delegate Juanita Fisher.
Move to previous question, Mr. Chair.
Motion for the previous question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no.
Aye.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion, the previous question is adopted. We're on the amendment. There was a motion and seconded. All in favor of the amendment ending in 725, please raise your hands. All in favor. Delegates Eric Hand, Cham, Grammer, Cox, Griffith, do I see you? I think Malone. And who am I missing? And McComas, I apologize, 7, got it. All opposed to the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Shetty, Williams, Conover, Moon, Davis, Cardin, Anderson, Watson, Bartlett, Jones, Crutchfield, Fisher, Lopez, Atterbury. The amendment fails. Delegate Griffith, we now have your second of two amendments, which ends in 920, which I believe also is a funding amendment. It goes to funding for state's attorney's offices.
Yes, sir. And thank you for the opportunity to introduce this amendment. And this is the same vein as the previous one. Again, we want to make sure this is done right. Again, I support body cameras. It's important. I think it's good for all parts. It's good for citizens. It's good for good cops. It's good for everybody. But it's about making sure we fund it and roll it out the right way, responsibly, and give these jurisdictions that want to comply the opportunity to meet the will of this body. And so far, we have not done that. Unfunded mandates, are a burden to taxpayers that are already sucked dry right now in the state of Maryland with everything we're facing. So what this amendment would do, a big piece of the body cam program is the state's attorney's offices being able to process the film, making sure they can go through and properly, because if you have body worn cameras, yet you don't have the individuals with the bandwidth and the volume of individuals to properly review the film, there's no point in having it. So this would simply allow for the funding for the state's attorney's offices, not only for the equipment and the benefits, but also the pay, to be able to help them meet the will of this body, which is what I want, and which is what I think everybody wants here, is to be able to have a successful and robust body worn camera program for every police officer in the state of Maryland. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would move the amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. McComas, Conway, Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, I will say that because of the use of body worn cameras, they have to be very carefully reviewed. And I know that in discussion with our state's attorney, he made it very clear that as we expand the use of body cameras, they are going to need more staff to be able to review the films and everything to figure out what they can release and what they can't. The other reason is they have to be very careful. So whoever's reviewing has to have a good understanding of the confidentiality of victims and if they're in, and keeping their privacy and personal information away from the defense, but also they have to make sure that they provide any Brady material, because that if they don't, there can be wrongful convictions and all kinds of bad consequences for everybody. So they're going to have some really skilled folks, and not just some paralegal that just finished up at the community college. They're going to need somebody that may even have be a paralegal, but also have a law enforcement background, so they appreciate the necessary steps that they have to take. So, and they have to have somebody that's very patient, not unlike our dear Delegate Moon, who's very impatient, but is always doing 5,000 things at once. You got to sit there and you have to have some concentration and focus. So I think that this is a good amendment because we have to get qualified people. So with that, I hope we pass this amendment.
Delegate Conaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the maker of the amendment, you say that the body worn cameras have been in usage for about 5 years. Is that right? Didn't you say that?
I did not say that.
You didn't say they were in usage for about 5 years? We've passed.
I only addressed very narrowly the opportunity to fund the state attorney's offices to be able to properly process the footage. That's the only matter that I discussed.
Okay, well, how long has this footage been in existence, do you think?
No idea.
Okay. Well, I'm the one who put that bill in and originally, and for 2 years it was the funniest thing that anyone had ever heard. So let's say if the body cameras have been in use for 5 years, how come you haven't funded it in 5 years? Why wait till now to talk about funding it?
So I've only been a delegate for about a year.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's tough but fair. All right, Delegate Moon.
I don't know if I want to say it now that I've been called impatient. But Mr. Chair, this title of this bill is Police Accountability Act. The people are impatient. Move the previous question.
Moving the previous question. All in favor of moving the previous question, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
No.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Move the previous question. The question is on the amendment ending in 920 from Delegate Griffith. All in favor of Delegate Griffith amendment, please raise your hands. Arakan, Grammer, Cham, Comus, Griffith, Cox, Malone. Did I miss anybody? McComas, I got McComas. Okay. All opposed to the amendment. Delegates Shetty, Conaway, Williams, Moon, Davis, Cardin, Anderson, Watson, Bartlett, Lopez, Atterbury, Jones, Crutchfield, Fisher. The amendment fails.
Move favorable on the bill as amended. Mr.
There is
Chair.
one more amendment from Delegate McComas ending in 428. Delegate McComas, I believe that this amendment would extend the length of time that the 3 jurisdictions that are identified in the bill, Hartford, Howard, and Anne Arundel, would have to implement their body camera systems and from 2023 to 2024, and it would prolong the date that they have to for everybody else to get the body cameras to 2026. Is that correct? And you're muted. And you're still muted.
This is easy. I call the question.
Delegate McComas, I need you to be brief because the bells.
Okay. Yes, sir. All right. I will be brief. This is basically going to help these guys come up with money. Hartford County is going to have to come up with the first year $600,000, and they don't know how much they're going to need in subsequent years. They're having a difficult time basically getting new employees, getting applicants, so that they're probably going to have to raise the wages significantly. And basically, I think that it's reasonable to give everybody more time, because time will also probably improve the technology. So no, we're not buying cameras that are kind of out of sync, because it's amazing when you look at the phones and how all the cameras have changed and become so much more sophisticated. And that is also probably also in the body camera situation as well. I mean, technology is really, I think that we can probably get a lot cheaper cameras if we wait a little bit. So those are the reasons why I think these are 2 good amendments.
There's a motion on the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. There was a motion on the amendment. So we're gonna take a vote on the amendment right now. Delegate Moon moved the question. We're gonna go ahead and do that right now. It's a straightforward amendment. All in favor of Delegate McComas's amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Arakan, Griffith, Cham, Grammer, Malone, Cox, and McComas. All those opposed to the amendment, please raise your hands. Delegates Conway, Shetty, Williams, Moon, Davis, Cardin, Anderson, Bartlett, Lopez, Atterbury, Jones, Crutchfield, and Fisher. The amendment fails. We're on the bill as amended.
Move
Favorable.
There's a motion for favorable. Is there a second? Motion favorable on the second. I will take brief discussion, but that's it. Delegate Arakan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some questions for Claire about the use of force section that we've added into the bill. Claire, can you tell me, is the language the posture it's in now similar to what we originally passed out of the House, or is it more similar to the Senate version, or is it some kind of conglomerate of the 2?
It's kind of a compromise.
Okay, and can you tell me specifically on the spots where the compromises took place?
It's just, it's hard for me to say.
The challenge is that she has a new dog and it is in the background.
I am so sorry.
All right.
It's hard for me to, it's been kind of streamlined. It's mainly following the House. It's mainly a streamlined version of the House version is the short answer. And then there were some subsequent negotiations, which I personally was not privy to, but there were some modifications made as a result of some subsequent negotiations.
The distinction between what left the House in House Bill 670 and what is in this bill in Senate Bill 71 is that it indicates that that the use of force is necessary and proportional to prevent an imminent threat, which is the same from the House bill, or to effectuate an arrest, which is same from 670. And the additional difference is that it has to be determined from the perspective of the officer. There is still a requirement to cease using force when the arrest has been effectuated. And the same and this language on de-escalation, intervention, and first aid is still in the bill.
Okay, and I see over here on page, I don't even know what page I'm on, 1 second. It doesn't have a page number on it, but it looks like it still has in there to intervene or terminate the use of force by another police officer. So to me, that's an extremely problematic part of the section of the bill, because what we're asking our police officers to do is when they come to a scene, psychically know the events that took place leading up to the other person's use of force. That is an impossible standard for any human being to meet, I would think. So I'm a little bit concerned with that. It says section E, number 2, intervene to prevent or terminate the use of force by another police officer beyond what is authorized under subsection D of this section. I just don't know how any person how this would ever be triggered. How could any police officer show up and have any idea, if they weren't there for the whole thing, and know what justified another police officer's use of force? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't seem logical to me. And I'm not sure why we're including that in the final product that we're putting out. It's an unreachable bar. So that's one of the things that I think is disappointing to see that in here. Another comment on what I see here is we're putting things in here that could easily be commission policy. I mean, we already have, every police officer already has to take an oath to protect citizens. I'm not sure why we're putting in here the sanctity of life oath. They already all do that, and that could easily be something that the commission can draft up. I mean, sometimes in my Baltimore County delegation, Delegate Cardin will say, this could have been a letter. This could have been a letter. I mean, we don't need to make a law about this. We just need to let the commission come up with something if we want something that's overarching for the whole state. But I don't know why we need it overarching. Every single jurisdiction already has something like that. It's just not even necessary. It's just silly.
Thank you, Delegate Arakan. Delegate Fisher.
Move to previous question.
This motion for the previous question.
I have a
previous question,
Had my
say
hand up,
aye.
Mr. Chair.
I have my hand up. I raised it.
Opposed to the motion for the previous question,
No.
say nay.
Oh,
In the opinion of the chair, the previous question is adopted. Where the bill is amended, further debate is over. We're going to go with the roll call. The vice chair,
Yes.
Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Arakan,
no.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Cardin,
Yes.
Delegate Conaway,
Yes.
Delegate Cox.
No, and may I explain my vote?
You may.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, this bill will actually mandate a mental health evaluation, even if the officer does not wishes to decline, that's a violation of an officer's rights. You cannot force an officer or any person to submit to any mental health or other type of physical exam. Also, the other big concern here is that when you look at the section on when an officer may or may not use force or draw their firearm, and they have to go through reasonable alternatives to decrease physical injury in a split second. This is problematic. First of all, it should be handled by the local departments. Secondly, when you're looking at the intervention, so if one officer believes that another officer is somehow drawing his firearm, now this bill is going to improperly, now this bill is going to require another officer to intervene. So you're going to have officers required to draw arms on themselves. That's insane. That's ridiculous. It's a very bad bill, but thank you, Mr. Chair.
I understand that there are people who need to move from other locations to get back to the State House. Delegate Moon. Your vote.
Yes.
Delegate Juanica Fisher.
Yes.
Delegate Lopez.
Yes.
Delegate Crutchfield.
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis.
Yes.
Delegate Robin Grammer.
No.
Delegate Griffith.
No.
Delegate Rachel Jones.
Hold on.
Yes.
Delegate Malone.
Yes, and just to explain why I'm smiling is my son made a proposal this afternoon and she said yes.
But you're not actually a yes, are you?
No, I'm a no on the bill but glad that she said yes. I'm just explaining, smiling because I will hopefully have a daughter-in-law in about a year from now.
Oh, that's
Congratulations.
wonderful.
Delegate McComas.
No.
Delegate Shetty.
Yes.
Delegate Cham.
No.
Delegate Ron Watson.
Yes.
Delegate Williams.
Yes.
All right, 14-7. That concludes the voting session for the House Judiciary Committee. The bells have rung. Please go to the floor. Thank you very much.